Where are you from?
Greece.
I'm from Chile.
Iran.
Turkish. Greece. Hello. Okay, go. Huh? Go. Out. Go.
Maniacs rule your cities while geniuses drive your cabs, and I mean, this is it. This is your stinking land of dreams. A place where you can still live third world in a first world country. Love has Cupid and poverty has stupid.
I'm Uzma Shakir. I came to Canada in 1988. I never planned to come to Canada. I had studied in Britain and in the United States, but I just happened to marry someone who was living here. My spouse went through enormous financial difficulties. We lost our house. We had to go move from house to house, from one rental house to another rental house. We lived, our economic situation was really unstable. I found my niche in social services. And I have been in that, I've been working either as a volunteer or as a researcher or as an executive director or as a community activist for the past 20 years, almost 18 years, in the South Asian, not just South Asian sector, but in the immigrant and refugee sector and now the social justice sector. No, it's not about expectation. I don't expect anything from multiculturalism. I'm only saying that since that is the cornerstone of Canadian public policy and social identity, I'm just trying to, actually I'm trying just the opposite. I'm trying to put some meat on it. Right now it is a pretty flimsy concept.
Multicultural, what it means? Yeah, diversity.
Many cultures in one place, one city, one town.
Well, I think it means, people from different cultures coming together all in one place. That's pretty much what I think it means.
Just different cultures, different harmonies living together in one spot,
A blend of all nice people coming together.
I suppose people of different backgrounds living together amicably.
A diverse community within a city, different groups from all over the world. That's about it.
So they all basically said the same thing, right?
Well, the first thing I noticed, everyone you asked looked white to me. And so that's going to skew the kind of answers you're going to get. And they're going to be, I think, about the happiness and the harmony, because people who look like the people you talk to don't experience racism in Canada. And I think you get very different results if you go to people of color and Indigenous people and ask them what multiculturalism means.
Oh, I've always questioned Canada's multiculturalism. I think it's a bullshit concept.
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just a term that they made up to to try to lure more ethnicities into the country and, take away their backgrounds from them and have them work half-ass jobs.
The first day I got to Canada, the first time I went to a shopping mall in a supermarket here in Canada, Loeb in Ottawa, an old white man told me, "You niggas are never going to be as good as us. Are you going to tell me that's multicultural society?"
Within the past 10 years, we've had over 500 Aboriginal women that have either disappeared or been murdered. And the investigations on that are still ongoing. Some of them are even non-existent.
Just 1 minute. Hey, इधर आए वो पूछ रहा है multiculture के बारे में
No, multiculturalism to me, it doesn't make me feel comfortable. The term doesn't make me feel comfortable.
I think the only reason Canada calls itself multicultural is because I think that demographically you have a lot of different races here.
A lot of people talk about multiculturalism and they're talking about multi-ethnicity. You know, many ethnic groups, period.
To me, this is very common. I mean, in my classes, this is what students will begin with, right? Yeah, multiculturalism is great because, why? Okay, because you can see different cultures.
It's just a bunch of people living in the same place. That's not multicultural.
I've called that the fact of multiculturalism.
The best way I can describe it is you take a bunch of things and you just throw it into a big pot and you present it. You take, like when you're sitting in a restaurant, you're done eating and you spray ketchup and water and salt and you pour it all together. That's not a delicacy. That's just a bunch of things you've put together.
When we say multiculturalism, we could say yes. In fact, jail is very multicultural. If you go to the prison system, you see all different types of shades and colors. But is that really worth anything?
Everywhere has always been multicultural, and if you, in that sense of fact, like for example, England, which, you know, the purity of the English. Well, where did that red hair come from? Well, that red hair came from freaking Norway, okay? It's not England. And where do various attributes come from? They'll always be thrown together. You look at the English language, and it's a hodgepodge of all these different languages. So
it means one thing to be on the subway and hear different languages, or on the street and hear different languages. But what if those communities come and say, "Hey, you know what? We want our different languages to also be part of the everyday curriculum." Then all of a sudden you've got a whole different set of claims.
But diversity is not the equivalent of multiculturalism. Diversity is something that comes and goes, depending on immigration flows.
I look no better. In Canada, multiculturalism is much more part and parcel of our whole immigration history as well. Don't forget, we have a very aggressive immigration history because we are a small population and we are building it on the backs of immigrants.
When Canada thinks that they need immigrant to build up this country, so they make this rule as a multiculturalism, that they show outside country and also the immigrant who are living in here, to give us them like some kind of sympathy that we are really honor the multiculturalism, we are giving support, and different cultural people are going to be coming here and we're going to honor their culture.
I think one of the aspects of multiculturalism today is that it seems to work politically hand in hand with our immigration policy. We have a very expansionist immigration policy in this country, especially in the last 15, 20 years. We are taking more immigrants per capita.
Because of economic need.
Did they actually allow people to come into this country on the basis of cultures? No.
Well, I think it's beneficial for the employers. You know, there's a thing called the law of supply and demand. If you have a large number of workers, the price of what they have to offer, their labor goes down.
So they're not coming here on the quota of multiculturalism.
There's very few countries in the world that are immigration societies. Now, we define immigration societies as societies that have policies in place that regulate the flow of immigration into a country. And an immigration society is one in which there are programs in place in order to facilitate the settlement of new Canadians. Now, multiculturalism is one of these programs in order to improve the settlement of Canadian society. So there's a sense in which immigration and multiculturalism are inextricably linked in Canada.
The government uses multiculturalism in a way as a kind of an ideological support for immigration.
It's not something that, of course, they're not going to say, we are bringing you here because.
The claim is that, well, we are having immigration because we are a multicultural nation, and further immigration enhances that basic feature of Canadian society.
But multiculturalism is not a result of immigration. People could keep coming to a place and it could have been very different. It's a result, I mean, it's a result actually of, I would suggest, a way of orienting to the world that's about European colonialism. That we are the center as Europe, and wherever we go, people must align around us.
So what happened to suddenly bring multiculturalism into the picture? Well, actually, it's not as altruistic as we think of it today.
The origins of the policy in '71 were really quite political, and I always like to talk about multiculturalism as, you know, first and foremost, I think we have to understand that it's a political act that is intended to achieve political goals and to do this in a politically acceptable manner.
Well, it didn't have anything to do with Aboriginal people. It had to do a lot with Quebec.
There's a contestation about identity of the nation by the Francophones, which they put up against the Anglophones and saw themselves as a conquered nation.
Trudeau and others were very worried about the emergence of what's called French-Canadian nationalism.
Because Quebec was threatening to separate if they didn't gain equal power with English Canada.
That within Canada there is ample room for opposition and dissent, but none for intimidation and terror.
And remember, that movement was a radical movement. It was a revolutionary movement, socialist movement.
One of the initiatives by Pierre Elliott Trudeau was to create a commission called the B&B Commission, the Bilingual and Bicultural Commission of Canada.
This is all in relationship or all in reaction to a sentiment for independence within Quebec.
Basically, the question is, how can Canada be bilingual and bicultural?
With bilingualism, the federal government was able to say, we have accommodated Quebec's need to have more power and more say within the Confederation. But the bicultural part of that is extremely important, because when the federal government set this up, they were not thinking about the non-Francophone, non-Anglophone, or non-British, non-French descended Canadians, for the most part.
Some members of some groups, especially Ukrainian Canadians, objected to that with the idea that a policy of biculturalism might imply that they should become members of one of these two cultural communities. They didn't want to do that.
They called themselves the third force at that time and said, hang on a second, Canada's more than just English and French. And Pierre Trudeau realized, my God, if we don't listen to these emerging powerful communities in terms of votes, we could be in trouble.
It was recognized that the support of allophones, the support of other Canadians, was going to be extremely important for the federal government in winning any potential showdown with sovereigntists in Quebec. And they would need to have their support, they would need to have their votes.
But in the end, the Commission decides Canada should be bicultural. So this then is where Trudeau comes in,